What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's the good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. We're officially diving into our 2025 draft class scouting breakdowns, kicking things off with Armand Membou here, and I'm very intrigued by what I was able to dive into and dig up with him, and it makes a ton of sense why earlier on in the process, because of his build, he was regarded as somebody that would be best served switching to the interior at guard, where he also has a background playing coming up through high school. But many people feel like it would be best suited to mitigate some of the physical limitations that he has by going inside, and still people built on that by saying they believe that he has a higher floor and a higher ceiling at that position, and that could definitely still be the case as we look to see what the future of the offensive line is. But considering the fact that I think by the time the draft came around, most people widely regarded him as definitely a mature tackle prospect, says a lot about what his film offered, and people breaking him down, I would say, pretty late in the process. Him killing it at the combine definitely helped out. But looking at him, 6'4", 332 pounds, and he's actually, well, obviously he's worked his way up to this, right? But you've seen pretty measurable differences in terms of the weight that he's put on going from his freshman year up until his junior year here. So you love to see that. And I think he has something crazy like a 14% body fat index, right? Which is insane at being 330 something pounds. I couldn't imagine it, right? At that point, you just expect to have some additional skin going on there. But 21 years old, you're getting this guy extremely young. He's not going to hit his prime for another 4 to 5 years or so, which is going to coincide with him getting an extension, which is going to match up perfectly for the Jets, assuming things work out in our favor. A former 4-star recruit, has somewhere in the range of about 29 starts at right tackle. Even his freshman year, he was able to wrap up the season, rotating in and out, but finishing the last 5 games of the year starting, and then never really looked back going into his sophomore year. An illness kept him out of the Senior Bowl, so it's the only reason why I would assume he wasn't a extremely early riser in the process, and something that may have benefited the New York Jets. We only had one tackle go above him, Will Campbell, who definitely has elite tape as well. But considering you can make the case Armand Membou is a much better athlete than what Will Campbell is, he could have been a guy that would have been off the board for us already. Missouri operated a few different kind of schemes, but essentially he worked out of a zone run heavy scheme, and I think a lot of people would say the athleticism lends itself to being the best opportunity for him going into the NFL leagues as well. But in general, this is a guy that you love seeing being able to get out into space, because he can punish people coming off the line of scrimmage, but when he gets ahead of steam and he's locking in on that second linebacker, or unfortunately if a safety or DB happens to be back there, it's lights out. And he has pancakes all over the film, high school to this, of course, going into the NFL, his time in Missouri. But I remember seeing either New York Stock Exchange, or NFL Stock Exchange, or maybe it was New York, I forget, but NFL SE with Connor Rogers and Trevor Sikkema, or it could have been one of the other guys I watched, like the bootleg. Somebody was mentioning a couple of battles with him going up against 5-star prospects, right? Guys that were coming into the collegiate ranks with a pretty elite background, and then of course guys that have become household names and staples in the collegiate ranks on the line, and you're seeing him just maul these guys left and right. And I think that is a part of the game that appeals most to Aaron Glenn, because he wants to go out there and essentially strike fear on both sides of the ball into you. This isn't going to be an offense, I imagine, where we're looking to just control the time clock. We want to go out there and be an extremely explosive unit, and Armand Membou does a solid job of being able to add to that vision and dream. 2023, Missouri went pretty crazy. They were a Joe Moore Award semifinalist for being one of the best offensive lines in college, and they had one or fewer sacks over the course of 5 games, and then over the course of 5 games, they also had 200 or more yards on the ground. So Membou is a guy that you're going to want to be able to run behind, and it just so happens to help that we have another athletic freak on the opposite side in Olu to round things out. So we should have no shortage of being able to break some things wide with both these guys being able to get out there and make some things happen. He was on Bruce Feldman's 2023 freaks list as well. If you guys want to go check that out, it's littered with numbers around the ridiculous amount of weight he's pushing around with ease. I believe that's also where I got the body fat number from, and some other interesting tidbits that'll be in there as well. He faced a litany of top tier rushers, so we talked about the 5-star matchups that he's had, but overall he has faced a number of higher echelon edge rushers, not just in this class, but of course for guys coming out in the next year or two, in addition to some players that would have left in 2024. We are the first team in a quarter century to select 4 first-round offensive linemen in a 6-draft span, and I think a lot of that is based on the fact that Armand Membou is kind of the athletic freak that he is, in addition to just showing that he can punish guys in the run game while being extremely advanced as a pass blocking technician, which at 21 years old is really hard to find, especially in this day and age of college football where a lot of offenses are dumbed down, simplified, some unrecognizable in terms of translatable skill sets going into the NFL. So huge pickup that you're not talking about a project that just has elite traits here. This is a guy that the skill set definitely matches up with what he's capable of doing. And the best part is, I would argue that a lot of people feel like there are still leaps and bounds he can take in this game to not only become more consistent, but as he continues to kind of grow into that body, he'll become much more of a problem for defensive lines to handle. He's coming off a 0-sack season. I believe he only had about 4 penalties as well. So you love not only the pass blocking, of course, you love the fact that mentally he's locked in and he's not just having false starts or holding on to guys left and right and killing the game plan. Now, him only being at Missouri, again, huge plus in my book. I like guys that are able to stay pat and either earn a early role and keep it, or work themselves into earning a role and then they finally dominate. But you look at what he does really, really well. Elite body control. You will hear the words fluid multitude of times when people are breaking down Armand Membou's tape, because it really is uncanny how easy he is able to carry around that 330 plus pound body and get to some of these landmarks where you're talking about him trying to get somebody in a wide 9 alignment, right, and beat them out to forcing them to run the arc and essentially run themselves out of the play. And he does it with the 4.91, I believe it was 40 that he ran at the combine, definitely shows up when you see him get into some of these markers and attacking the second level. A very efficient and I would say underrated quick mover. Not only can he execute those blocks on the second level, you can see him get to his landmarks on those outside runs, both play side and backside. And at some point, somebody clocked him in on the GPS as going as fast as 20.28 miles per hour, which is insane because at various points, you're talking about that being the same speed that Breece Hall has been able to go out there and run. And guys like Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, some of our quickest, Brandon Eccles, some of our quickest guys on either side of the ball. So I hope that we don't necessarily need to see that, but if he's running 15 yards, down the field and trying to lay into somebody, I'll take it, right? Quickly processes stunts and blitzes. I think the mental part of his game and understanding what the defense is looking to do is vastly underrated with him, but more often than not, he's able to understand and not get himself out of position on some of those stunts and blitzes and be able to operate and stalemate those right then and there. A variety of pass sets. So Most times you'll get a guy that's maybe extremely comfortable with one variation or one angle that he's jumping out into when it comes to pass protection, but he's been able to pick it up because Missouri has kind of run a multitude of schemes and just because he is kind of an athletic freak. So he knows that he's going to need to try to keep guys guessing, and it's not just a random, I'm going to hit a 45-degree angle this time, I'm going to go 90 degrees this time, or anything like that. It really is kind of that chess match that's going on where he's letting guys know this hand placement is going to come different every time and the body alignments are going to come different every time, and you're going to struggle each and every time. Footwork and hand usage to mirror speed and power, it really is kind of ridiculous that he's able to keep up with both, and you can't find necessarily an obvious weakness in how people are attacking him and him consistently losing, which makes sense with how he's given up 0 sacks. And even this, moving further into it, it's not like he racked up a ton of pressures either. He really has kind of been a lockdown defender, a lockdown offensive lineman on his side of the ball. Can easily redirect based on how his weight shifts. So one of the things that gets a lot of tackles into trouble, and this is kind of where the size comes in at an advantage to him. Well, you'll hear a lot of people say that it may be a disadvantage in that on that 6'4" frame, he usually should win the leverage battle against, especially against some of these edge rushers that are going to be about the same size or maybe even a little bit taller. In certain cases, he'll have that natural leverage, opportunity, and advantage, but he also understands weight transfer and what it means when he's putting weight on his back leg because maybe he wants to engage his core and he's looking to sit down on something as opposed to putting a little bit more weight into the front, whatever that first initial leg is that he's kicking out with, and maybe he wants to lean into somebody or he's looking to kind of wall and seal somebody off or again hit some of those secondary level landmarks for himself. A finisher, he's going to plow you into the ground if he has an opportunity. And so we may have some whistles where maybe there may be some unnecessary roughness on the offensive side because of him, but you absolutely love the killer instinct that he's going to bring. Has the balance and core strength to match against some of those 9 wide aligned guys. They will probably, honestly, from a tape perspective, give him the most struggle, especially as guys get quicker, stronger, faster at the NFL ranks. But overall, still, it's impressive what he can do with being able to run with those guys and make sure he's not giving up obvious, easy paths and lanes to the quarterback or the running back. Powerful enough to stun on contact. I think you'll hear some question marks around if he always keeps, can continuously supply the same amount of power just based on some of the angles he's working out of and or if he's trying to take on somebody in a bit of a wider alignment. But overall, if he can get engaged and he's not losing the length battle, he's going to be able to knock a guy to a stalemate pretty easily, especially considering the grip strength that he has is pretty impressive. From a opportunity or concern standpoint, right? He has height and length concerns, right? He's not built like your average tackle, and so you're going to see when we talk about the comps here momentarily, guys like Rashawn Slater, I think are going to be the easiest physical fits to try to compare him against, even though the skill set may not be, apples to apples per se. But again, in a lot of ways, I think it works to his advantage as we chatted about. You're going to see him occasionally over or underrun, so overrun or underrun when it comes to hitting some of those plays on the backside, and maybe he's looking to snuff out a specific linebacker or maybe an edge guy that's aligned a little bit wider on that side, and sometimes he just can't. Sometimes the athleticism is just too much, right? Maybe he's geared up too much, or maybe he's underrated how quickly he wanted to get there. And so in any event, it's something I expect would get cleaned up pretty quickly with more experience. Occasionally can be caught lunging against some of those guys that's going to be aligned a little bit wider. And the issue with that is that it's going to affect things like his weight balance, his center of gravity, the leverage that he should be able to naturally gain, and it's going to make him susceptible to being snatched and pulled and kind of tossed out the way a bit there. But generally, he's been able to recover pretty well in the few occasions where that has been a winning move against him. You can argue he'll need to keep his feet moving on some of the dry blocks that pop up in games, normally against somebody that's just naturally strong as well. And then the hand placement is going to be an area to want to improve on. And I think a lot of that is more so from a timing standpoint, right? Can he deliver some of those early punches and then make sure that he can stay within the chest plate, especially while they're moving in phase, if he doesn't have somebody controlled from the outset. But honestly, there's so few cons compared to all the overwhelming good he's going to bring. I can't imagine how he necessarily fails with us, especially in year one, which is a relief to say. I am curious about his future projection, right? And this just depends on how the New York Jets decide they're going to try to continue to keep their offensive line together or how they shake things up, right? We could easily be in the tackle market once again, and maybe you want more of that prototypical size type tackle to throw in there, and then you suddenly have a Pro Bowl All-Pro / guard to replace someone like AVT or John Simpson. If you decide you want to convert Membou on the interior and take even further advantage of all the traits that he has, but we'll worry about that, a year or two down the line. In terms of some other comps that are out there, I think from an athleticism standpoint and just how nuanced he is in the skill set that he offers, Zach Tom, Dwayne Brown, and Dylan Parham are some names that have come to mind or that have been dropped on me as I've kind of checked into and looked at him. So extremely thrilled looking at him. Let me know what you guys think. I do believe we are looking at our tackle tandems of the future. Very high on Olu, of course. And Membou here, while I think I still would have preferred the Michigan kid. But Armand Membou was a nice surprise, right? There's a reason many people were looking at him as a top 10 type guy. But I get a little wary, not like his tape was horrible in 2024 or anything, but I get a little worrisome of kind of one-year wonder type guys. But in terms of, again, the offensive line, current environment, and kind of the trajectory that Armand Membou's been on, he's an elite prospect. So I would argue some people should be throwing him in that blue chip conversation piece. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.